What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today is another topic that I want to touch on, similar to one of my recent videos where I talked about my obsession with stationery, notebooks and pens, and how that feeds into my creativity and how it kind of makes me who I am, and it's just something that's a part of me. Today I wanted to discuss another aspect of why this channel even exists in the first place and how I always knew that I wanted to be a creator and a filmmaker of some kind from a very, very early age. So I've wanted to be a creative for as long as I can remember. I've always been a musician since I was like the age of 11 or 12. I was in percussion in band. I picked up the guitar around the same time, and I'm a big metalhead, so I was playing all the good stuff, Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer. Slowly got into Dream Theater, more complex stuff, and that was something that always sort of shaped my personality and who I am. But in tandem with my musicianship, I had my filmmaker cap at the same time. And I can remember super early on, I had somehow gotten this tiny little digital camera from my dad and would take it around with my younger brother, and we would just record stupid things. Anything that we could think of, just stupid things. But I was always sort of like the cameraman and thinking of the way it would look on camera and all the different shots and how we should do it like this and how we should do it like that. So I was always kind of the videographer, the filmmaker, the director behind everything that could try to make our young imaginations come to life on film. And I still have that tiny little digital camera somewhere, and I would love to be able to find it for this video, to be honest, but it might be lost to time. But I do actually have videos, the actual files from that early camera of just the shenanigans that my brother and I would get into with our G.I. Joe figures, our action figures, you know, us running around with sticks pretending they're weapons and creating our own countries and having these huge imaginary, like, fictional worlds that we tried to bring to life with that digital camera and phones later on, all that fun stuff. So the whole creative process for making movies and films has always been in the back of my head. And I just thought about this the other day, and it made me kind of want to make this video in the first place. So there we were making all sorts of different, like, stupid videos of us jumping down the staircase at our house, running around out in the backyard and throwing our stick figures around and breaking them and having them fight, and all of this crazy stuff at the time that we thought made us like movie makers. And slowly churned time a little bit more when the advent of smartphones started becoming more of a thing. One of my first smartphones became the new digital camera for making all sorts of different films and short films and video ideas that we had at the time. And I would use that as much as I possibly could and make just everything and anything. And honestly, that probably put me on the path to where I am today with just social media and content creation in the first place, because if I had stopped there, this may not have ever been a thing. I may not have ever started any of my social media accounts in the first place, and I might not be here talking to you today. So it's kind of a pivotal moment in terms of my creative personality. But early days with smartphones, we would film similar to how I did with that early, like, 480p potato quality digital camera. We would use my phone to make stuff, and we would film these epic battles between my brother and my cousin. And like I said, I'd always kind of be cameraman, I'd always kind of be director, and we would try to make these ideas come to life. And the funny thing was that I would actually edit these videos from the phone that I had, which was, as you can probably imagine, not great and very slow. So we would maybe make a super short thing cut together by essentially me hitting pause and record on the phone. I tried to do my cuts in camera as we were going. And when I went to the editing process, it was more or less trimming the beginning and the end of the video, and maybe adding some text and some music if the app at the time allowed it. So we would record and film these different ideas. I would kind of do the minimal editing that I would within that smartphone, and I don't even remember what the app was at the time. It's probably just some random generic video editing app at the time, because the video editing capabilities that we have on our smartphones now were not a thing back then, so you kind of had to have a dedicated app. And so we would wait many hours and come back to a very, very, very hot temperature-wise phone that's sitting on a charger, probably just waiting to explode, and we would see the finished product and then go back and make changes if we needed to, or do another one, or show it to people, whatever. And that was always really fun to me. It was an exciting process. It was something that just like tickled that part of my brain that musicianship sort of touched on, but didn't quite scratch in the way that I needed. So that was always a thing. Fast forward a little more in time, I started getting into animation, if you want to put it that way. So I downloaded a very early some form of like frame by frame animation, stop motion, stick figure. It was called Pivot. It was called Pivot at the time, and it might have been Pivot 2.0 or something like that, but it was essentially a basic 2D program on my computer that my brother and I shared, that would allow you to have stick figures or draw lines and make different shapes that you wanted and maneuver them in different ways, and move it, click a frame, move it, click a frame, and essentially do stop motion animation, keyframe everything, and have these cool little animations to play once you were finished. And I did that for quite a long time and made a lot of cool, interesting things with it. And in tandem with that, back when the DSi was a thing, shortly after it came out, because we always got console stuff a bit after the release date, just because money was tight. And Flipnote Studio on the DSi, which I still have my DSi, so maybe I'll be able to pull up some of these little animations that I made, these hand-drawn frame-by-frame animations. That was something that I also did along with the Pivot program on my PC. So I would make these awesome battle, bloody, gunfight, gory animations on Flipnote Studio, and you could add some simple sound effects if you wanted to, and I made these crazy things that hopefully you're seeing on screen right about now if I could pull them off. And that was something that also interested me, just that process of animation and special effects. So my filmmaking journey was kind of tipping into a few different cookie jars all at the same time. There was the practical filmmaking with a camera, and then there was also kind of the special effects and animation side that I did on top of that. So after a while, I wanted to do something a little more advanced, and I downloaded Blender. And that was something that was maybe a little too complicated and a little too complex for me at the time, and I just never really got too deep into it. But a program that I did really get into was something called Endorphin, and it was a physics simulator essentially, but you could keyframe stuff, you could do some animation stuff, but really it was like a simulation program that you could run physics simulations on with different objects that you could download from forums, and some of them are humanoid, and you could do different physics forces like pushes and pulls and do all sorts of physics simulation things. I'm not in that world anymore, so the practical technical terms for all that stuff I'm probably not getting right, but just from what I remember, it was fun for me to do. I would set up these like collision objects and build brick walls and like set a force to push or pull this humanoid figure that I have, and this is 3D. So this is a 3D physics simulator on a very old school PC, so it ran like absolute garbage trying to render these things out and perform these simulations. But I would have those forces throw a guy through a wall, or have a car drive and smack into them, and have two guys fight each other and a head pop off, because you could do like a sever event. At a certain point, you could keyframe a point where a body part would come disconnected from the neck or whatever joint. All sorts of cool, fun things that you could do with that program. And I put a lot of time and a lot of hours into that. And unfortunately, I don't think I have any evidence of anything I created on it, because I don't think that computer exists anymore, nor do the files. But that was kind of a big part of my filmmaking journey as well, because it just allowed me to creatively express myself in that sort of world, that sort of film adjacent world. Even further down the road, I stopped doing the animation stuff so much. I got busy with, like, high school. I was doing sports, so I was doing football at the time. I was doing wrestling. I was also in the marching band and regular band, and I was also in like honors classes and AP classes. So I had my plate full for pretty much all 4 years of high school. But in my free time, I would still write music, play music. I had a couple little musical groups that we would jam throughout high school and record some stuff, early days of recording music. But I would also do things with some of my friends and my brother of more filmmaking stuff. So I got back into the holding a camera filmmaking. And at some point, I don't remember exactly when, I actually got an early, not even mirrorless, it was just like a DSLR camera. It was a Sony HX300 or HSC300, something like that. It had a fixed zoom lens, recorded at like 720p, but that was, again, another pivotal moment for my filmmaking journey, because it was a dedicated camera. It took some photos, it did video, and that's mainly what I had it for, but it set me on the path even further to be like in that filmmaking world. And as bad as that camera was at the time, I didn't know any better. I think my dad might have bought it for me, or I might have bought it myself from the local pawn shop for maybe $70 or something like that. It was no fancy camera whatsoever, onboard mic and everything, but it was a tool. It was something that I could use to express myself as a filmmaker. So again, that was a super pivotal moment, because then I started venturing into more serious like short film stuff, and I would film a few things that were essentially redos or reboots of earlier projects that my brother and my cousin and I had done. And then I started doing stuff with some of my friends, and some of that stuff was very basic, but I was watching channels at that time like Film Riot that were giving me all sorts of ideas on how to film movies and how to edit like movies and all that fun stuff. So I was trying new things. I was doing different things to try to make films, to try to make movies, as opposed to like the amateur running and gunning, like phone home recording stuff I was doing years prior. And at a certain point in high school, I actually took a filmmaking class. That was cool that they had it. I didn't do a whole lot in that class that I thought was too like pivotal in terms of my filmmaking personality, but it was a fun elective to have. And I made a couple little projects, but I didn't like the class so much, not because of the teacher, because he was also my wrestling coach at one point, but it was very constraining, if that's the most I could say about it. It was very not free, if that makes sense. We had specific projects that we had to do. We had to film like a 60-second commercial for a product that we made up, or we had to film some kind of little short about an inanimate object or something. But that felt very constricting to me, and I like having my freedom to kind of do things how I want. And we didn't really learn like the basics of lighting too much. We didn't really learn exposure too much. We kind of did the thing, and it was fun for the time. But again, it was something that kind of kept me on that filmmaking path. And not too long after that, getting near the end of high school and into the college days, I started a YouTube channel. And I did gaming commentary type content for a little bit, and got bored of that very quick because it wasn't doing what I wanted. I was trying to emulate people that I looked up to, like Markiplier and Jacksepticeye and Captain Sparkles back then, and I just wanted to be kind of one of them, and realized it wasn't for me. In the time that I had that channel, I posted some original music videos and stuff that actually performed really well. So at some point I decided, hey, I'm going to create a separate channel that's for my music and stuff. So I did that, and that is where everything took a major pivotal change, because then content creation in YouTube entered the chat. So at that point, I wasn't creating all the time, but I had an outlet now. And I did a music video for a heavy metal cover of Mary Had a Little Lamb for my debut video on that channel. And so I started getting into more of the content creation side of things, and I started filming more and trying different things. I was like trying a podcast type of commentary video series at the time. I was doing music videos of music I was working on and covers that I was doing and song challenges, all sorts of different kinds of content that I was trying involving my music, which also, because it was content, tied into the filmmaking side of things as well, because you got to film yourself if you want to create content. And that just set me off to the races, like tenfold compared to anything before that. And I've done that for quite some time. It's my most successful account that I have, and it's turning into something more and more serious the more and more time goes on, because I'm doing more and more serious things on that. So fast forward a handful of years after having that channel, just about last year, I finally was able to get to a point with the every once in a while video that I could make with that channel, because I wasn't able to take it too seriously. I've always had a full-time job. I have a wife and who's been my girlfriend since high school, so there was that. We did a long distance thing with college, and then 2020 there was COVID. All that fun stuff happened. So I've always kept pretty busy. And last year, I finally reached the point, which is very tough, honestly. Only 6%, less than 6% of people with a YouTube channel actually reach this point, but I got monetized. So now I'm really focusing on that channel quite a lot. And so at a certain point, I did realize that the itch that I was having for filmmaking, again, just wasn't getting scratched by the content creation of what I was doing for my music channel. So then this channel was born, and I created this account under a very different name, like Virgil's Photo Universe, and that's the email I have, and I'm stuck with it at this point, so I can't change it. But it was meant to be my like photography business that I was going to try to go into to get away from my 9-to-5, and it didn't kind of sit with me too well after I created it, and then I came up with the name That One Virgil, and I thought that fit a lot better. And didn't really tie me to being like a photographer, because I'm more of a filmmaker, videographer than I am a photographer, so it didn't make too much sense. And I pivoted from intending that to be like a business thing to this is another creative outlet for my filmmaking. So now fast forward to the present. This channel has met some milestones a lot quicker than my music channel did, like by tenfold, by so much. This channel is more successful in the time that it's been alive than my other channel was in the same span of time. So I've had companies reaching out to me to send me stuff. You've seen videos on it. I've done product reviews on things that companies have sent me. I've been in contact with Sony. They've liked some of the things I've made on their lenses, and we've been back and forth with stuff. So there's a lot of cool things that have happened under this channel, just because I'm in the filmmaking niche, and now I'm able to really dive into the filmmaking side of my brain, because I kind of tend to think of my brain as having two sections, not left and right, music and film. That's kind of my brain. I have my musician side and my filmmaker side, and my music account is for when I need to really scratch that itch for music, and I can still tie in filmmaking stuff, but it's really for the music. And my filmmaking side of my brain is obviously for my filmmaking and what I do here on this channel. Camera gear, audio gear, all things for being creative, making film, and making content. And so here we are. And I have both channels that I continue to run that I have full intentions of taking seriously with both. I guarantee within a year on this channel, I will be able to have this channel monetized at the rate that it is growing, which is a bittersweet thing because it took many years for my music account to get monetized, but I'm not gonna complain. I have these two channels that I can scratch both sides of my brain with, and it's really great. Whenever I get a filmmaking idea, bam, it goes on this channel. If I get a music idea, bam, it goes on that channel. So that's more or less my filmmaking journey and like why I became a filmmaker. I probably missed a bunch of stuff, but I tried to keep it somewhat simple so this video isn't super long, but there's been an interesting journey for myself, and I feel like it's always been written in the stars that I would have this as a hobby, hopefully turn profession at some point, but it's always been there. It's always been in the back of my head since I was really, really young. And I'm really glad that I've acted on a lot of that and have the things that I have today, including this channel, to make all the fun stuff that I do on this channel. It makes me happy. I'm improving as a videographer, a filmmaker, and a cinematographer with every piece of content that I make. And you guys are along with me for the journey, so that's really awesome. And it's just, all things are just in the right place. And with that said, if you have any other questions about my filmmaking journey or honestly even my musical journey, definitely let me know. Otherwise, if you like my content and the things that I make on this channel, please do me a huge favor and watch some of my other content. It goes a long way in helping the channel grow, and it's highly, highly appreciated. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next video, and stay creative, my friends.